Cuba just can't catch a break. Another travel warning, another economic blow, another headline telling tourists to stay away. But this isn't just about holidays. This is about a nation that has been stuck, economically strangled, politically frozen, and regionally isolated for decades. Let's break this down properly. So I've seen an article recently. So here's what's happening. According to the recent report, the UK Foreign Office has warned British travellers to avoid all but essential travel to Cuba. Why? Because the island is facing severe infrastructure issues, fuel shortages, widespread power outages, transport disruption, and strain on healthcare systems. Flights are being affected, aviation fuel is scarce, power cuts are frequent, basic services are under pressure. And here's the thing. If you travel against official advice, your insurance might not cover you. So tourists are understandably nervous. And for a country that depends heavily on tourism revenue, that's a serious problem. But let's get deeper. Cuba's current situation didn't just fall out of the sky. Yes, there are internal policy problems. Yes, there are governance issues. And yes, there are inefficiencies. But let's not pretend sanctions haven't played a major role. For over 60 years, Cuba has operated under one of the longest standing sanctions regimes in modern history. Limited access to global banking, restricted trade, difficulty importing fuel, medicine, and machinery, limited foreign investment flow as well. So now imagine trying to modernize your infrastructure under those conditions. You can't easily buy spare parts. You can't freely access international credit. And you can't trade normally with the world's largest economy right next door. That creates economic stagnation. And stagnation leads to decay. And that's exactly what been happening in Cuba for the last 50, 60 years. And stagnation leads to decay, power grids age, transport system weaken, supply chains collapse, brain drain increases. And when global crises hit like COVID, Cuba had no cushion. Tourism collapsed during the pandemic. That was a massive revenue loss. Now tourism is trying to recover, and this travel warning lands like another punch in the stomach. But let's be honest. Look at the bigger picture, people. Cuba isn't the most dangerous island in the Caribbean. It's not the crime capital of the region. It's not a war zone either. This travel warning isn't about violence chaos. It's about economic breakdown. It's about infrastructure strain. And that's the tragedy. Because Cuba has educated its citizens. Doctors, engineers, artists, a global recognized culture, strong literacy rates as well. But potential means nothing without access to capital, fuel, and a functioning supply system. Sanctions were supposed to pressure political change. But 6 decades later, the government is still there. And the people, they are still struggling. So you can't just point the finger at the leaders of the country. So you have to ask this uncomfortable question. Who's actually hurted? No, let's not romanticize this either. Cuba's leadership also bear responsibility. Economic reform has been slow. Private enterprise has been restricted historically. Currency reform were messy. Public frustration has grown massively. You can't blame everything on sanctions as well, but you also can't ignore that. It's both, put it that way. External pressure plus internal issues equal stagnation. And stagnation becomes normalized. And that's the dangerous part. When power cuts become routine, when shortages become expected, and when making do becomes a culture, that's not resilience, that's survival. And this is bigger than Cuba as well, because every Caribbean nation watches this. Tourism dependent economics are fragile. Global politics affect small islands disproportionately. Sanctions, fuel costs, global inflation, they hit us harder. Cuba isn't just the most extreme example, but the region should be paying attention. Economic sovereignty matters. Diversification matters. Infrastructure investment matters. Because once you fall into a long-term stagnation, climbing out of it becomes nearly impossible. So when you see that travel warning headline, don't just see avoid the Caribbean island. See decades of pressure. See global politics. See economic isolation. And see policy failures. See a nation trying to function with limited oxygen. Cuba doesn't just need tourists, they need breathing room. And right now, it still can't catch a break.